Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life. And not too long ago, T-Mobile's earnings call for Q4 ended. I sat through the entire call. I listened to the Q&A. And of course, there were a couple of takeaways, some good info, and overall, what looked to be a great quarter for T-Mobile and their business. This is what they centered everything around. And this is going according to T-Mobile's business plan that they guided at the Analyst Day last year. So to get that out the way, just really quickly, they did not guide for any Analyst Day coming up in March. There was no mention, no talk about that at today's earnings call. Whereas Verizon and AT&T have them coming up in March. Verizon March 3rd, AT&T March 11th. So great article from Barones. I will leave it in the description down below. T-Mobile stock is up because earnings were good and the guidance was great. So after our stock was up like 8 or 9%. So the market really liked what T-Mobile presented today, what the numbers were, and what they're guiding for 2022. So again, as they stated at the Analyst Day last year, lots of upside for T-Mobile. A huge amount of upside in business segments that they've never competed in. And they lacked the scalability in just about all of them during LTE. They just weren't strong enough. So business is doing better. Rural presence is and growth is getting better. And then, of course, fixed wireless access is a big deal for them. And it's, as Mike Sievert stated, it is turning out to be a mainstream product. So you guys have already seen the preliminary numbers, so nothing changed there. As I said, those are more than likely accurate, but since it's not the official report, we have to call them preliminary numbers. So for this quarter, Mike Sievert started off with his usual script. Big 5G leadership, big 5G growth. So nothing changed there. And they are still able to claim that because, again, Verizon and AT&T just are not there. But Verizon recently announced $100 million, which if you take away the exclusion zones and they are able to deploy wherever they would like, that likely goes to 110, maybe 115 million, depending. And Verizon is going to have a big month in February and March in terms of expanding C-band sites. But regardless, T-Mobile is in that leadership and they are looking to accelerate this year. So the past year, CapEx was $12.3 billion. It was like $12.326 billion that they spent. That was already done. This year, the CapEx refreshes, and they did increase the CapEx for this year. But again, it is not an increase, it is an acceleration. So they're going between a number from 13 to 13.5 billion that they're going to spend. So they want to get a lot done this year, and they're pulling some of the work that they were going to accomplish and do in 2023 into 2022. So as Mike Sievert stated during the earnings call, nothing changes to the overall guidance. And he said this as well. That means the CapEx lowers in 23. They guided 9 to 10 billion in 23. That likely looks more or less like the number is going to be 7 to 8 billion of CapEx in 2023, unless the success just explodes this year and they raise the CapEx for next year. But for this year, they're working with the 13 to 13.5 billion that they're going to spend. So a lot of stuff is going to happen. You're going to start seeing everything pick up. They feel Verizon on their tail end. They know Verizon's coming. So of course they're going to accelerate. So again, they referenced Sprint keep sites to be completed within this calendar year. They want to get those done. So be looking forward to more of those conversions in your markets. Sprint sites going to T-Mobile sites. So that means the Sprint equipment comes off, the T-Mobile equipment goes on the site. They are still planning the decommissioning of the CDMA network at the end of March. and then the Sprint shut down to follow that in June. So they have a lot of work on their plate. Neville is going to be busy this year. They want to cover. They want to expand the coverage. They did state that the coverage expansion is in the plans. So again, this is just my take briefly on that. They are sensing success. They can feel it. They can taste it. They're going into areas now with retail distribution where they have coverage and it's working. They increased the share by 2% in that rural suburban footprint. They went from, just 1 second, they went from, I think they stated in Q4, 1/3 of the total ads for the quarter came from rural. So they can sense it. So now it only makes sense for them to have the conversation. Hey, if we expand coverage here and we add towers there and we add retail distribution, we will likely be able to accelerate our goal in rural. Remember, they only guided to gain 10%, go from 10 to 20% share in rural by 2025. That is conservative. That does not give them fair share in rural. So there's likely opportunity for them to exceed those goals. And I think they do get there. And they're kind of signaling that they're starting to gain traction in that segment. So that's likely part of the reason why they are accelerating that CapEx this year, is to grow and expand the coverage. There's already permits in for that. I'm 100% positive. I'm seeing it all over the place. People are sending me images. I talked to some of these tower crews. They're like telling me, hey man, T-Mobile's giving us a lot of work to add sites where they've never had coverage before. We're going into the boonies and we're putting up T-Mobile equipment. So that's happening this year. And of course, that's going to scale more over next year as well. There's no way that they're going to be able to finish the coverage expansion in this calendar year. That's not going to happen. So that's out of the question. The Sprint conversion sites, I can see that happening. Maybe a couple of them run into 23, but that should be a very small percentage. They've been able to convert those sites at a very rapid pace and bring in, of course, some of the Sprint coverage sites and then the density sites. They converted 3 of them here in my market very quickly. They did it very quickly. So that's something that they discussed in terms of the acceleration for the year. And then home internet, that was a big group discussion between Mike Sievert and Dow Draper. And then, of course, some of the analysts also asked about fixed wireless access. Again, they stated this during the third quarter earnings. A lot of people didn't believe it. It was overlooked. They said it again. They are taking share from cable and fiber. That's where the majority of customers are coming from. It's not DSL. I'm sure there's some DSL customers, but there's not a lot of that DSL footprint left in the United States. They're stating majority customers coming from cable and fiber. Now, I know many believe the fiber is the premier product, which is true, but that doesn't mean that customers won't leave it. There are a lot of customers out there that are not tech savvy and they look at price. They say, hey, I'm paying $100 for this fiber product with T-Mobile. I can get it for $50, no tax. Let me try it out. And Dow Draper says the satisfactory of that product is good. They're getting a lot of great feedback. Now, they did not report any churn on that product. But again, I told you guys in my T-Mobile home internet updates, when they released that last firmware update, it's been so stable. Like I said, I'm having a fiber-like experience. Now, I know it does not perform the same in the throughput, and fiber will always be a better product, but I'm having a fiber-like experience, meaning when I load 4K, it loads the same. It loads just as quick. And that's what I think the customers are experiencing. They're going from fiber to T-Mobile. They're saving money, and they are still able to load their content the same. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't any problems. I'm sure there's people out there that have issues. That's always the case. But I think at grand scale, T-Mobile is doing very well with this product, and they are telling us about it at the earnings call. So I don't know if they ever will report churn on that product, but for now they are able to reel in customers from cable and fiber, and they are guiding for a big 2022. Now, they didn't give us any detailed numbers, but they say this year will even be bigger when it comes to fixed wireless access for T-Mobile. So again, not much else after that. Couple of business questions. They are working on another federal contract that they're going to get, and then another logistics company. I think Mike Katz referenced the airline, the Alaskan Airlines deal was completed, and that company took T-Mobile became the primary for that company for everything. So I think he did reference that deal did close. They did get Nordstrom earlier last year, I believe. They got that one too. So they are working that side of the business. They're gaining some customers, bigger customers. Small business will be very competitive for T-Mobile because fiber is trying to get in on that play too, in terms of like the work from home solutions. T-Mobile is trying to grow that fixed wireless access for the smaller business as well. But that's going to be a more competitive environment because, again, fiber is getting in on that. And then if you watched my video earlier, they're now giving access to some of the MVNO partners to supply their customers with fixed wireless access. So they're going to compete against T-Mobile with the same network on that product as well. So it's going to be an interesting year. T-Mobile is going to accelerate. So you're going to see a lot of activity this year. A lot of activity, especially going into the summer and then later on in the year. Now, one thing that I do want to bring up before I forget, Auction 110 was discussed today by Neville. Not a huge amount of guidance, but they said they would not deploy this spectrum until 2023. The reason, they are in no rush. They got N41, they got that to deploy. Once they start deploying Auction 110 and the Auction 17 C-band spectrum, and they confirmed this today, they are deploying this in a single radio. So they are waiting for the dual band support. And that means they have to, of course, climb sites again, but they just deploy one radio, one panel, and they're done. By that time, all of the sites will be modernized to where they don't have to do a lot of other work outside of just adding the panel and getting it integrated into the network. But that should be the only work that they have to do at the site. The baseband unit should be ready via software to handle that spectrum. Now, one thing that he did mention that was a bit confusing, he said there are no devices currently ready, that the OEMs would have the first device ready end of year, early 23. And then there are some people telling me that the iPhones now, the 13s, are already capable of the DoD spectrum. So I don't know. I haven't really researched any official information on that. Neville says no. Some are telling me yes. So I don't know if maybe there's some certifications that the phones need to go through. Maybe they are capable of taking advantage of the DoD, but Neville says no. Some people are telling me yes. So we'll see down the line who's right and who's wrong. So let me know how you feel about this. Exciting year for T-Mobile. Looks like the coverage is expanding. They are accelerating the CapEx, so a lot more money going into this year. So they have spent a higher CapEx since 2020. So they spent around $11 billion in 2020, $12.3 billion in 2022. This year, they're going to be at a number between 13 to 13.5 billion. So there's a lot of money going back into the network to see this acceleration through next year. That's unclear. That's a bit far out. A lot can change within that time frame. Maybe they are able to raise the CapEx on the guidance and keep it at 9 to 10 billion. Even though I think that's a bit low, I do think AT&T and Verizon are going to increase their budgets once again, and to accelerate and try to catch T-Mobile as quickly as they can. But We will see. We will see. Again, good quarter nonetheless. The market loved it. They like the guidance. They like the numbers. Money is there, although there were some drops in some of the numbers, likely due to increased competition. So T-Mobile had to push out promotions as they usually do, phones, free lines, insider discount here and there. But it keeps them competitive. It keeps them level-headed, and soon, the competition will be there as well at somewhat of a scale with C-band to try to really compete against T-Mobile in all aspects. Verizon is coming to compete against fixed wireless. AT&T, of course, is outgrowing T-Mobile for now. So there's going to be lots of competition in the market space. So make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Follow the social media outlets for more updates and interactions. Thanks again for watching. This is Tyrone with Tech Life, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.